Welcome everyone to Watching Code Office Hour session number 78. Thank you for joining. I just have a quick few logistics that I want to get through, and then we'll get into the main content of the office hours. So first, if you're new here, the purpose of office hours is to help you get through anything related to watching code stuff. And so the problem it solves is a lot of students that are working on their own through online courses, um, like when you get stuck with something, it's a really scary experience since you don't have anyone to turn to for help. And so the office hours is kind of that to kind of address that issue. So if you ever have anything that you're stuck with, you can just ask me directly. Um, so the way it works is I have a couple logistics before we get started. One is join the Facebook group to get information about upcoming sessions in case there are any the rare schedule change. And also sometimes there are just extra announcements about the content, about new stuff that you might want to know about. I pretty much never send emails, so this is the only way to really keep up to date with things. So you want to join that Facebook group. If you're watching on YouTube, you can get to this document in the video description. There's a link to this document and you can get there. If you have a question you have not called in yet, you'll want to do that. So the link to call in is right here. Again, the document link is in the YouTube video description. And so make sure to do that. I'll try to periodically check the YouTube chats, but I don't reliably do that. So if you have a question, you really do want to call in. New stuff. So there's this whole new series I've been working on for paid members, and before each new series, there's kind of like this big ramp up time for me to figure out what it will look like and how that will be structured. And I can pretty confidently say that we'll have new stuff this week. So sometime this week, expect new series for premium membership members. If you're not sure what that is, it's for students that if you have completed practical JavaScript and you want to take that next step and go beyond those initial kind of foundational lessons, then you'll want to sign up for the membership program. And we just go into much more advanced content. So that's where you can check that out. And so if you're subscribed to that, you'll see new stuff sometime this week. So that's it for me. At this point, the way it works is I just pretty much call in students and then we go through and ask our question and I try to help you the best I can. So I'll try to call on people in the order that they joined. I may not be perfect with that, but that's what I'll attempt to do. So I think it was, I don't know if it was Jen Nirma or John first. But I'll go with Jen Nirma since you're new.
Yeah, hi, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Wait, where are you in the world? Where it's morning?
I am currently in the Philippines.
Oh, okay, got it. Cool.
And it's my first time to join.
Awesome. Well, welcome and thank you for joining.
Yeah.
And how has your experience been so far? Are you in the free practical JavaScript course right now?
Yes, I'm currently on version 5.
Okay, cool, awesome.
Yeah,
and how's that going?
I've been enjoying the course, and I'm seriously thinking about enrolling on your premium course because I've been really enjoying it, and I've been working on my coding for two months and 2 weeks, so I've been really very discreet and looking for the right what do you call this, for the right course until I stumbled upon an article that recommended your course. So I tried it and I've been really happy. I've understood the concepts that took me really a hard time understanding in other courses. So, and I like the practical stuff. That's what I want to do now because I've done with the theoretical stuff of JavaScript.
Yeah, I'm done with that too. Me too. Awesome. Well, so how are there any things I can help you with, or did you have any questions as you went through the content?
Well, at the moment, I'm just trying to push myself and rewrite the codes. So at the moment, I'm alright. I'm understanding the concepts. I'm just really trying to be, because I used to be a teacher, so I'm trying to push myself. The way I would push my students to learn the code, like I would actually rewrite the codes that you would write, not just from memory, but from my own understanding, specifically on objects. So that's, I really want to learn that, because I've been through your article on not article, that video on process, and I believe in that. The process is very important in learning something. It doesn't necessarily mean that people who have been doing it for years would be much better than you. So I've been working on my process, because I think I pretty much have a good start on my coding, considering it's just been 2 months and 2 weeks. I've been dabbling on it. I'm quite okay with the curriculum. I didn't really get into other languages. I didn't allow myself to get distracted. And I'm so lucky I found your course, and I believe I'm on the right path. So
Awesome.
it's just nice to be a part of your course.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you're doing all the right things. So just do
I
it
hope
every
so.
day.
Yeah.
Every day if you can. Not everyone can, but if your schedule allows, try to be as consistent as possible, and I think
Yeah.
everything else will work out if you
Thank
even
Yeah.
if you don't do watch and code, right? If you do other stuff, even if you do all the wrong things, if you do it every day, it will work out eventually. So
Yeah.
cool. All right. Well, thank you for joining. And if you do have a question as you're going through stuff, just let me know and I can come back to you.
Yes, I will. Thank you very much.
Yep, you're welcome. All right. So next we got John. I think you were next.
Sure.
What's up?
So, I've been going through and commenting every single line of code in To Do MVC.
Which one?
The jQuery one.
Okay.
Oh, app.js and index.html. But I went through all like the videos again and Google to try and understand everything that I didn't. But I still have a couple questions about a couple of the lines.
Okay. Let's go through them one by one.
Sure. So the line in the store function.
Can you share your screen so we can see what you're looking at?
Yeah, let me see if this will behave. Might reverse my. Does that work?
Oh, it is upside down. Yeah, it is.
All right, let me see. Is that good?
Okay. Can you Command plus a couple times? It's really small.
Yeah.
I think it's good.
All right, so this line right here. I don't understand why it returns an object instead of true or false when this is like an ampersand here. Like this returns true, right? If you have something in store. And then this returns an object.
Yeah.
So why isn't this return true or false as a whole, and instead it just returns like the object here?
Right. So one thing I want to illustrate is I'll share my screen too. Is I really want to encourage not just you, John, but everyone, including me, as a reminder that when you see something that doesn't behave the way you expect, try to run an experiment to see if that behavior is specific to this experiment, is specific to this piece of code in this program, or if it's a more general thing. So the reason you want to do that is because there are assumptions that in your question that may or may not be true, and you want to make sure that you turn those assumptions into assertions. Right. So for example, the first thing you said is if it's true, it should return true, or if store is true, it should return true or false, right? I think that was some paraphrasing what you said.
Yeah, right? I guess so.
But
I guess maybe because the ampersand is there is what's.
Yeah. So I'm sharing my screen right now. And if you play around with the ampersand, which means and, right? it returns true. Well, not it doesn't really return true. It returns something like true, or it can actually vary quite a bit depending on how the things on the right and the left, what those values are. So if you are dealing purely in Boolean values, then you will get a true or false. And so both sides have to be true for you to return true. So if you have true and false, then you get false. And then if you have false and true, you get false. And then if you, of course, if you have false and false, then you get false. So both sides have to be true, and you only have 4 possibilities, and it only happened in this case. Only if you're dealing with Booleans, though. Now, the situation changes if you're dealing with non-Boolean values. So let me show you an example. If you have an object that's name is John, right? And then another object whose name is false, what are you gonna get?
I don't know.
See, and this is the kind of experiment that you want to run, because if you look at your code that we're dealing with, this is more similar to what we're working with, where you have store, which is equal to the return value of line 53, right? And then JSON parse store, which is equal to that return value, which depends on what store is. So then my next question for you is, what is store?
An object.
Is it an object? All right, so let's just assume it's an object because it's not super important what it is at this moment. So in our case, we have 2 objects on the left and the right. And in this case, you get returned the thing on the right side. Okay. So this is interesting because remember I talk a lot about what is the corresponding Boolean value of any given value in JavaScript, and an easy way to test it is with this, right? So this is equivalent to true. It's actually if the AND will kind of force this to the corresponding Boolean value to figure out what to do, and it's doing that behind the scenes. So if you force each side to the Boolean value, then you actually get true for both of these. So if I pasted in this as well on the right side, you get true and true.
Okay.
So this comes back to this experiment, right? True and true kind of obfuscates what's happening because both sides are true. It's hard to know whether it's returning the right side or the left side. But what you find is when both things are equivalent to true or truthy, is what the term some people use, then it's going to return the thing to the right side.
Okay.
Now,
so that's the general rule.
Yeah. And then if you have something like this, where you have the left is truthy and the right is false or falsy, then what happens now?
It's going to be false.
Okay. Huh, that's interesting. Let's see. What is the typo here?
Oh no.
So this works, but maybe
Does the whole thing has to be in parentheses? Oh yeah.
I've actually never run this experiment, so I guess it does have to be in parentheses. I didn't know that, but we kind of get a hint. Maybe that's why it's in parentheses in the code. But anyway, so when the left side is true and the right side is false, it returns the right side. And then I think if both are falsy, so for example, Boolean 0 is false. So what if you have 0 and false? Are you going to get 0 or are you going to get false?
Might be false.
0.
Yeah.
So the reason that happens is because for this to be true, it has to both sides have to be true. If the left side is already false, then you don't need to evaluate the right side.
Oh, okay.
And so this is called short circuit. It's like a micro optimization.
So it actually returns it returns the actual value. It doesn't convert them to true or false and return true or false in that case. Like 0 is not converted to false, it's just 0.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, that's
In
interesting.
this case. So anyway, so once you run this experiment and you come back to line 58, the way to interpret this is return so I'll go back. So basically it's return store if it's there and JSON parse returns an object.
Mm-hmm.
So you're basically checking store exists and it's parsable.
Okay.
And if that happens, then you want to return the result of JSON parse store. If that's not happen, if store is falsy, so for example, let's say store is falsy, right?
Mm-hmm.
0. And well, if it's falsy, the right side won't even do anything, right? So it's just basically going to return 0. And then you have this thing where it's like 0 or empty, all right, 0 or empty array. And in this case, you see, because you have two things combined, you have the and the or, right? So in this case, if the left side is falsy, it's going to return the right side. Because you can't short circuit on or, because or will return true if either side is truthy. So it has to do both.
Okay.
But if the left side of the or operator is truthy, then it will short circuit and it won't evaluate the right side because it doesn't need to. Right?
Yeah.
So you want to like just really systematically go through and figure out what's going on. And the best way to do that is with these little experiments.
Okay.
Honestly, I went through this and I didn't remember what any of these things would return, but now I know. or I kind of had a vague memory of it. So oftentimes I would go through the same exercise because if I just don't remember. So an example of this is if you go to logical operators MDN, there's going to be like a table of some sort. And you could memorize the table, but I have better things to do. Right. So you're basically, we basically derived this table.
Yeah.
Right. So it's much more, I think, it makes much more sense to think of experiments because it allows you to derive things like this rather than being dependent on the documentation. Like, of course you can read the documentation too, but it's actually not that easy to understand. And it's just more concrete when you see it yourself. But, running this experiment and then in concert with this is a good exercise too. So if you want to verify like this case and then this case, and then this line and this line, then you can do that. And then you can go back and you can read line 58 without issue.
Okay, cool.
Are you cool with that question?
Yeah, that helps. Thanks.
Okay, so run experiments.
Makes sense.
Next, you said you had a couple. What were the other ones?
Yeah, let me quickly see what he wants here. This one might not be that complicated, but why do you think they chose to use this instead of just app for all of these methods?
It's the same reason in practical JavaScript. Because if you and it doesn't really make that much of a difference, I think, but the slight advantage is if you decide to rename app to something else, like, I don't know, maybe you want to rename it for some reason. It's nice that you can rename it in one place versus every single place you use this. That'll become a headache and potentially easy to mess up.
I just thought like if you want to use this at some point, then you wouldn't bind any of it. Like if you wanted to target this, Like you wouldn't want this here, right?
Say that again. I didn't follow.
Like if you wanted to target in jQuery, if you wanted to target the actual element selector that you're using, like the element, you wouldn't want to bind this, right? Like, because then you can just access it super easily with this.
Right. Yep.
So I feel like you're kind of overriding like a key component of jQuery by just overriding all of this instead of using app, like app.create. But maybe I guess in this case it didn't matter.
Well, in that case, that you would not be able to access the app methods on this. So you'd have to reference it a different way, which you could do too.
Just use like app.create, right? And app.toggle all.
No, but the part where you're overriding this value inside the callback function is the next this over after the bind.
Yeah.
Right. That's overriding the default jQuery this. Right. This is equivalent to app.create. It's exactly the same. It's not going to override any jQuery behavior, but that second this is.
Okay. Because I think I tried it without bind this, and then I just put app here, and it worked.
It shouldn't work. Right. So go into show me this .create. Yeah. So create won't work because otherwise this .todos won't work.
Right?
Because if this is the jQuery element or whatever, or the element, I can't even remember what it is. And by default, like print out this without bind, and you'll see this is something. It's like element or jQuery element. I can't remember. I think it's the raw element. There's no to-dos property on it, so it'll throw an error.
Even if you put like app.todos, like that.
Well, not if you put app.todos.
Okay. All right. I was just making sure.
Yep.
I think I understand the answer to that one.
Yeah, I think it sounds like you have an alternative way of doing it. If you think it makes sense in a different way, I encourage you to try it out and then just look at the pros and cons. If anything, it's a good way to see how to do the same thing, and it reinforces the underlying thing that's being done. But quite honestly, like the pros and cons of one way or another, I don't know that I'd be able to really give you a good sense of it. Because I'm not a heavy jQuery user, so I really don't know. But, when I filmed this series is actually the first time I used jQuery.
Nice.
So
yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, I think just the general principles though of like, is this simpler? Just following that principle will lead you down the right path. So as you experiment things, if you feel like it's simpler, then it's probably better. If it seems way more complicated, then it's probably worse. I know that sounds really simple, but I really do think it's that simple. But people really overcomplicate things.
Okay.
And they really like to optimize for situations they don't have. It's a common programmer misuse of time.
Yeah.
So so be wary of that.
Okay.
Did you have anything else, John?
I guess
on the way, but good job on commenting and stuff. This is great.
Oh yeah. So I think this line right here is interesting, but I didn't really understand what this jQuery data, like how it was grabbing ID. Like I understand it's supposed to just be grabbing a property, but how is it grabbing it from like a list item?
It's not grabbing it from list item. It's grabbing it from a jQuery wrapped element, which has the data property on the data method on it. So remember in the videos, I kind of experimented and showed you how data worked and played around with it in the console. Do you remember that?
Possibly. Maybe I'll try and find that again. I don't think I could find it before.
you should try to find that point and then try to replicate that same experiment I went with. And then every single question you have, write it down
Yeah.
as an assumption and then try to squash that assumption or verify it through
Gotcha.
kind of the same way we did with the logical operators.
Okay. And then the last one right here. So I did find where you did this, but I wasn't exactly sure how it worked. Like I'm just making sure that it works like this here, where it doesn't show anything in here if there are no to-dos.
Wait, so iterates over, I'm reading your comment. So iterates over an array of to-dos, but why this Monday? If no
Yeah,
to-dos.
so I'm wondering why it's like a this, like why is it this instead of like some other container,
Yeah. So
like a title or something, or like just the word container or
yeah, so that's just like the way Handlebars does like for every template there's like this data context, I guess, and that context fills out the squigglies. I don't know what the technical term is, right? So it's just what they chose. Maybe there would have been maybe data would have made more sense, or context data, or template data, but they chose
I just didn't
this.
know if like this was referring to something specific.
So do you remember when I went through this section in, I think, the 5th video, and I ran the debugger over the templates so that you could see what, like, even like you could even see if the, like in line 62,
Uh-huh.
if completed was true or not, and then you could see that it would show or not show. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would do that same exercise and
Okay.
then inspect this with particular attention to this. So I think the way I did that was, if you go back into the JavaScript, you want to put the breakpoint, scroll up. Like scroll all the way up.
Like maybe in the init function somewhere,
I think,
like before this.
yeah, I can't remember where I did. I definitely did it in the video. Do you vaguely recall that?
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
try and find it again.
Yeah, so play around and try to like break it and change this value. And I think once you do that, you'll get a sense for what it is and how you can affect it.
Okay.
To do template. Is this the only, I think there's multiple templates, right?
Yeah,
Is
there's
this the
another one down here.
Oh, the footer
The code's just
template.
all spread out because of all the comments.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a footer template as well. It doesn't have to iterate over anything.
Yeah, so go back to the code and look. Wait, hold on, wait, hold on. So search for to do dash template.
This one right here.
Yes, in the JavaScript. Oh yeah, it's right. I see it right there. Compile. Okay. So, and this is the init. To do template.html.
So maybe this is talking about this here.
Yeah, that's referring to that template.
Okay.
Go to render. Did you finish the whole series?
Yeah. I'm on
Okay,
the like digestion part.
got it. Okay, so go to render.
Oops.
Okay, so render is taking the
To-do list.
Yeah, so this .to-do template, I think, was referred to the to-do dash thing in init method. I forgot what the class was or ID was. And then what they're doing is they're saying the template data for this template is to-dos.
Okay.
And then if it's an iterated template, then this is often each thing in the array, right? And so you could probably put a breakpoint somewhere here, and you could see that you basically want to see that to-dos data being fed into that template, and that's when this value inside of the template will get populated.
Okay. Yeah, I'll try and find that.
Yeah, and then so I would try to do it yourself, and then I think that's a good exercise. And then if you can't figure it out, then go to the video and then see how I did it. Because honestly, I can't really remember exactly how I did it.
Yeah, understood.
It would take a little bit of fiddling around to get it right, I think. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, and then what you can do is try to figure it out like while we're on the air, and then once we go off air, show me what you found.
Okay.
You can stick around that long.
Okay.
And then if you can't figure it out, I'll try to help.
Sounds good.
That sound good? Okay. Any other questions, John?
No, I don't think so. The only weird thing I found when I was rewriting functions and stuff, the methods, was that the focus, the weird little focus hack they have in here, they didn't seem to put the caret after the
right. That
was that like? Do you know if that's like deprecated?
I think something may have changed. Let me find a link that will send you to the right spot. Where is it?
I can try Googling like how to focus the caret after.
Yeah, if you
I just didn't know if it was deprecated or not.
Yeah, I think the behavior changed a little bit since I filmed the video. I'll have to verify it, but I believe you're right.
Yeah, it was just something small I found like right before this started. But that's all I have.
Okay, cool. All right, so work on that task and figure out what this is in the template, and then we'll talk again soon today.
Okay, cool.
All right. So next, Chidima, are you there?
Yes.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah. Yeah. So far, it's been good. I've been a little bit. I've been a little bit slow because of some work, responsibility. But I've been, gradually looking at it. So I have a question on get active to do's method. So yeah, maybe I should share my screen.
Okay.
Yeah, can you see my screen now?
Yep. Can you make it a little bit bigger? Command plus, maybe 2 times.
Okay, Command plus 2 times.
Yeah, click into the code and then hit Command plus.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. Okay.
Okay, yeah. So get back to okay, here we go. So I was kind of like struggling with this return, right? This. So the reason why I was struggling with it was we know that get active to do you know, is returning the to-dos that has not been completed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So now, if we if we if we run this method right, and again this return, you know, this gets returned, right? At that point, uh, it seems, I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of like confused with why this is returning. I think it's returning. What is it returning again? So my concern is, it should, to me, I was thinking it should be false, right? Because that means it's not been completed. But it seems at this point, it's coming back as, it will set the false as true.
Right. So
that's
the first key thing to understand is this is kind of the same thing I was talking to John about. You want to try to construct experiments to see to kind of get a really small example and then see how it works, and then that will kind of guide you in the larger example. So if we prototype the situation and we have each item has a completed property, right?
okay.
Let's say we have something like this, okay? And
Are you showing something?
yeah, I'm sharing my screen. Can you see it?
Yep.
Yeah. So I have a kind of simulated to-do list of 3 objects, and they're all false, okay? And I'll make one of them true for variation. So get active to-dos, you're right. So this is active, right?
Okay.
This is active, and this is not active, right? And so we want to get back a new array with just these 2, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use a filter, and it accepts a callback function. And the first argument will be the to-do. And what filter will do is it will return a new array, and it will include the original element in the new array only if this callback function returns true. So to demonstrate, if I return true, just make it very simple, then it'll return an array with all of them because it's returning true for all of them. So again, it will include the elements in the new array if this function returns true. And so I've just hard-coded true for all of them, so they're all going to be true. Now conversely, at the other extreme, I return false for all of them. What is it? What is this line going to give me back?
It will return where it is true, right? That's the
right. So filter will return a new array with each item that where this callback function returns true.
Oh.
If you return, so what happens if I return false on all of them?
Oh, okay. Because you're just passing false, right? So I mean, basically, it's going to return false. But I thought, what? Sorry.
No.
Okay.
It returns an empty array.
Oh, okay. Okay, because it has to be true to return. Okay.
Exactly. It has to run. You have to return true when you run this callback function on each element for it to be included in the new array. So that's why when you return false on every single one, you get an empty array. If you return true on every single one, you get everything.
Okay.
Right? Does it make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Now, if you want to just get these back, right? We want to just get
the false,
the zeroth, the first 2, right? Then we have to modify a little bit. We want to not return false or true for all of them because we don't want everything or nothing. we want to check the to-do property, the completed property. And in this case, it will only give us back. So what's going to happen in this case?
In this case, it's going to give us the value of whatever the to-do complete it's at this time, right? So it's going to, it's going to return where it is true. The object that has the true set.
Exactly. And that's only this one.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
So if you want the reverse, you want the ones that are not true, then you want to take the opposite of that.
Oh.
Right. So remember the opposite of, so you want it where false to do completed is false, right? The opposite of false is true.
Mm-hmm.
So this will give you back the first two.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's what's happening. It's the same thing in your code.
Mm.
What I encourage you to do is play around with this example and look at the documentation for filter as well, and play around with all the examples. And then I think when you go back to the source code, you'll feel pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, it might take a little bit of time to sink in because dealing with the array methods where you have a callback function and it runs it on every element, and then based on the return value of the callback function, it decides whether it includes it or not. It's like several steps of logic that it can take a little bit of getting used to feel comfortable with.
Okay. Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. Was there anything else?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. So my other question is, so for this destroy completed, right?
Well, hold on 1 second. Let me stop sharing and look at your screen again.
Okay.
Okay, so line 117.
Yeah, 117. So when this function returns, right, it passes whatever that is active to this what I say arrays, yeah, to the array, right, to this. So now my question is, this dot filter equals up. So are you just I really don't understand what is going on here. Are you just assigning this to this? Is something getting wrong here when you assign this, or just?
Yeah. So which video are you on in the series?
I'm in second video to do them.
Okay. I think this is most relevant when you look at render, which you haven't looked at yet. So I think once you look at the whole series, it'll make sense. You know, that's a tricky part of reading source code. Like you're gonna read one part, but then another part's not. You still need to it will make sense to you after you read a little bit more. I think this is one of those cases.
Okay. So the other question I have is similar to what the other guy it's similar, but I just want to ask it in a way that I will understand it, right?
Sorry, what was that?
I mean, the question I want to ask right now is similar to what the other guy has asked, but I'm trying to ask it in a way that I will understand it. Okay. So my question here is, so my assumption was that this right, is the app, the object, the app object. That's my assumption. So with this is calling this method, right? The create method. Am I correct?
Not quite.
Okay.
So one, your assumption is correct. I'd like you after this chat to verify that assumption using the debugger and the cheat sheet for this, because you want to be really sure about it, because it comes up all over the application. But your assumption is correct. I'd just like you to verify it. This.create is not being called. Remember the parentheses are on bind, so the bind method is being called.
Okay.
Right, so functions are objects. Objects have properties and methods, and basically functions can have functions on them, which is a weird thing to think about, but that's what we're seeing here. This .create is itself a function, and all functions have methods on them too. Bind is one of those methods.
Okay.
And can you open up the cheat sheet? This cheat sheet?
The cheat sheet?
Mhm.
So I couldn't even know where is it at.
So just Google Gordon Mzu GitHub.
Oh, okay. Gordon,
Or Gordon Zhu GitHub, ZHU.
oh, Gordon ZHU.
GitHub. Yep.
Okay.
And yeah, so click on that.
Okay. Oh,
Yep. Yes, and then if you go down, you'll see there's actually a specific section just for bind, and I think that'll be so scroll down.
I should find
Down.
it.
Yeah, so there's a whole section on bind, and it really helps to play around with these examples. And they're in the video series in Practical JavaScript, where I go through this cheat sheet. You really want to play around with those, and that's the examples that are here actually derived from the code that you're working through. So they're going to be very, very relevant to what you're looking at right now.
Okay.
So you see right here, like log this is a function. We're not calling log this though. We're calling the bind method on log this, right? So it's very similar to what you're looking at.
So you are calling this on this. Does it mean, but this would do something right? Because you are calling it on create in our own case.
Yeah. So I think at this point, what I'd ask you to do is take a look at the cheat sheet again, and also look at the videos that accompany the cheat sheet, because I go through all the examples with you in the console, and then once you do that, also play around with it yourself, and you'll see exactly what's happening in each of these examples.
Okay.
So you've probably already looked at it, but it's still a good time to, because right now you need to know it for the line of code you're looking at. So right now would be a good time, I think, for you to revisit those videos from Practical JavaScript.
Okay.
So yeah, it was the interlude on this. It was like towards the very end of the course.
Okay.
That sound good?
Yeah.
And then if you have a question about that, then let me know in Slack.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think that'll be really helpful, because the videos literally go through every single example on there.
Okay. That makes sense.
Was there anything else, Chima?
I think that's yeah, basically, I mean, since you wanted me to go through, I want to ask a question about this, what is it doing, but since you want me to go through, so yeah, I think I will suspend my question. I wanted to ask a question about this. Inside the
Yes.
bind. Yeah, but since you want me to like go through it again.
Yeah. So the example so if you open up the cheat sheet, and if you go through the examples here, and in case 5, I think it's case 5. So go to case 5 and scroll down a little bit. The example, go down. The example here is actually most specific to or go to case 4.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's really just case 4. So when you go back and review the video that goes over case 4, that's exactly what's happening if you go back to your code.
Okay.
Can you go back to the code?
Sure.
Yeah, so that's exactly what's happening in line 56.
Okay.
And then this, in this case, for example, Like, for example, what is this, the thing you've highlighted?
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. I mean, is the object, right?
Can you be more specific?
App object.
So, I mean,
Hey, Jason, I'm gonna mute you. There's a lot of feedback.
should I? So I guess what is oh, where is it? Where is this echo coming from? Because I have
No,
to.
sorry, it was Jason. I muted him because he was we're getting feedback from him. Go ahead.
So I mean, the new to-do that is being entered, right? So my guess is that is, I mean, what this is about.
No, that's not right.
Okay.
So a second ago, you said your assumption was that this on the left of .create was app.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, this one. You know,
Right,
so I had question on the two of them. I had question on this and this. I know I'm assuming that this is app, but I'm not sure what this one is doing.
So the question when you're looking at this is, what is this keyword's value inside of the bind events method? It's not going to change within this method.
Okay.
So this on the left of .create is the same as the list that's passed into bind.
Okay.
Right. And then so what I'd want you to do, Chinma, is when you so now that you know that this inside of bind events is equal to app, if you could identify which case it is in the cheat sheet, that would be really valuable, right? So as you're looking at this in different, hey Arthur, I'm going to mute you. There's background noise.
Sorry.
So as you're looking at this in different parts of your code, this code or any other application, you want to go to your cheat sheet and try to figure out which case am I looking at, right? So the case here is actually. Can you go back to your cheat sheet?
Okay.
Scroll up.
Up. About 4. Okay.
It's actually case 2. And so I'll explain this one because I really think you need to review this. And then I think this stuff will make a lot more sense to you. But I'll explain why it's case 2. So remember, when you're looking at my object and you call my method that's on my object, this value inside of my method will be whatever's to the left of the dot. So it will be my object.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
This is the same thing that we saw in practical JavaScript.
Yeah.
So go back to the code. So now when you're asking what is this inside of bind events, you need to see how is bind events called.
Okay.
So can you Command F and look for .bind events? Look for .bind events because that will show us when it was called. Right, so in line 46. So this inside of bind events is whatever is to the left of the dot, which is also this. So that's a little bit tricky, right? So now you defined out what is this inside of init. And to do that, you want to see where is init called. So now Command F dot init. One more time. Right, so now we know this inside of init is whatever's to the left of the dot, so it's app. So if you go back into the init method, that means this everywhere inside of init is equal to app. So go back into the init method.
You mean I should go back into the init method?
Go back into the init method.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good enough. So that means that everywhere you see this inside of init, it's equal to app, right? So that means line 46 is equivalent to app.bind events.
Okay.
And that means what this value inside of bind events is it's going to be app.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So you want to go through So again, like review the cheat sheet and the videos that accompany it. And then when you go through code, whenever you see this, try to methodically figure out which case am I looking at. And that will allow you to just give you practice in identifying what scenario you're looking at. And you'll find that once you practice this a couple times, it's always one of those 5 things. It will never be different. And so once you know that, it becomes a lot more manageable to figure out what things are, and then you can like know for sure what you're looking at in any given code. But it'll take a bit of practice of applying that process, really having that cheat sheet in hand, and kind of using it whenever you see this.
Okay.
So yeah, so your homework is to review the cheat sheet and the accompanying videos series for that, and then look at this with the kind of fresh eyes again. I think it'll make sense. And then if you have any questions after that, let me know.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yeah, sound good. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, identifying this is tricky, especially when you're new, and it can vary a lot, and the behavior can change quite a bit. So, but the good thing to know is that there are only so many variations. It's a finite number of variations. So once you get good at identifying all those cases, it really might be hard to believe now, but it will become very easy over time.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. What, Shinema, was there anything else?
No, that would be all.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let me know how that goes. So send an update in the Slack and let me know how it goes.
Okay, I will.
All right, so next I think we got Arthur, and then we'll do Lane and Russ. So Arthur, are you there?
Yes.
You want success. Got it. Are you driving?
Yeah, I'm actually driving. I was going to say, I'm sorry, guys. I have a meeting at the Hack Reactor in Los Angeles. So I wanted to be on this call as well and listen to all of you guys. First of all, my name is Arthur. Hi to all of you guys. And wanted to thank you so much, Gordon, for making the wonderful and great Watching Code series. I've been actually learning coding part-time for about a year, and when I website, I was like, oh, this is another beginner videos, and it's gonna be boring. But I actually learned a lot from the videos. I appreciate all the effort that you put in. So my question is, it's
wait, hold on. Wait, first, thank you for that.
Yeah,
I'm really nervous because you're driving. I don't want to hear an accident on
Hello?
the air. Yeah, can you hear me?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Arthur. I'm glad that you found it helpful. Will you be not driving in like the next few minutes? I can come back to you when you're not driving.
Actually, it's gonna be probably like 30 minutes drive. So I can stop for like a couple of minutes. That's fine. I can park for a couple of minutes and
Okay.
here.
I feel irresponsible if I talk to you while you're driving. So if you want to continue the
Let me just turn it
conversation.
off.
Oh, sorry. What was that? If you could.
It's still. Yeah, I did.
Oh, you
Is
pulled
this
over.
better? Yeah.
Okay.
Is this better?
I'll talk to you now.
Cool.
It just
Yeah, I
feels
was gonna-
very unsafe. Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna say my question is more of a career question. I really admire that you were able to move from learning by yourself to actually working with Google, and that's actually my ultimate goal. So my question to you would be, how did you move from learning to code to your first job?
Yeah, it could be quite a long question. I guess to keep it as short as possible so I can get to what is it, Lane and Russ. My path was very different than what yours will probably be, like if you wanted to work at a place like Google or anyone else is watching, because I was already working there in marketing and then product management. So when you're moving internally, it's I think a lot easier probably than coming from outside. And so it's going to look a little bit different. But it's probably not any different than most people that are starting today. So you know, when someone's hiring an entry level, kind of when it's your first job, like it was mine, they're not looking for, I mean, ideally you're just really good, like that. Everyone wants that, right? I don't think that I was, and I think that a lot of people aren't that good either, but they still get that first job. And so the thing that is interesting then is that, like, why were those people hired, right? Why were they given a chance? And so I think what they're looking for, in absence of that you're good, because most people beginning aren't that good, is ability to learn very quickly, like very motivated, and just like generally easy to like get along with and coachable. And just like, I think when you're coming from a background that's not as I guess rigorous, I don't like, compared to someone that is coming from a, like, has more experience than you kind of want to emphasize those things, because you're not gonna win on coding ability at the beginning. You're trying to instill a confidence that your trajectory is steep, and your skills are increasing rapidly. So that's the story you want to tell, and you're really motivated, right? So like the story isn't that you're great right now, but that your process and the way you do things is really great. And when you apply that to this new thing, you'll get better rapidly, right? So that's what you want to, or that was my strategy, because I was frankly not that good. And so I think that's what a lot of students are doing. I don't think that's the best way to go. I think it's better to just to actually be quite good, and also have all those things too, where you're rapidly improving, and you're really motivated and easy to work with, and can learn things quickly, and you have all the kind of soft things down too. If you can combine that with more competence, that more initial competence, that's the best, right? So I think what watching code is it's all those kind of hard learned lessons that I wish that I knew earlier. Like I don't think I learned a lot of these things until well after I started working as a developer, right? And so if I knew those things before, I'd be that much more convincing, and I think that just things would be a lot easier. I'd be much more productive, and just everything would be easier, right? And so I'm trying to kind of distill those lessons as if like I had the ideal experience, which I didn't, and I think a lot of people don't. Does that answer your question, kind of, Arthur?
Yeah, it does. I really appreciate it. It comes down to, as you were saying, the process, and being able to compete with those people by just putting up a better process, and working hard. So really appreciate it.
Yeah, I think the other thing with places like Google and just big companies in general is they tend to really like people that can answer questions that are kind of the things that you would learn from in like a first or second semester computer science course in college. So a lot of data structures and algorithms questions, and big companies tend to care about that. And so if you're interested in that, you should be really good at those things. And honestly, it's it's kind of annoying at the beginning, but once you get the hang of it, it's not that bad. And I think I think a lot of people, when they look to be good at interviewing, they kind of fail because they think success is that they answered the question. I think success is you answer the question, and you do it like really well. Like there's a difference between I answered it and it was the right answer versus I answered it well. Like answering it well is that you communicate what you're doing as you do it, if people ask about trade-offs, you can explain them. If if they ask about little twists, you can handle those twists. You don't overcomplicate things. Like your code is clear. The variable names are clear. It's like formatted well. And also you're not like when you interview people, you start to see people that you can tell that they barely have the answer in their head and they're trying to like vomit it onto the screen. And you can tell when people do that. And that's okay, but ideally, like what's nicer is you can see that people are thinking through, and as they're thinking, the code is coming out, right? So there's like a process between their thoughts and the outcome, and they're able to like break things down into little pieces, right? Those are the things that mark that I think are really impressive. Beginners never think about those things. And I think whether or not an interviewer says they're looking for those things, when they see those things, they like it. Right? It's they can't.
Yeah, I totally understand. Yeah, that makes sense.
So there's a level of polish that I don't think people understand when they think they killed it, but then they're never getting called back. They're not getting called back for a second round, right? Because they think they vomited the answer and did well, when someone else actually answered it really well and got the right answer, right? So it's like these little details that I think are more important than people think. So I think the way you get there is you're just very comfortable with this stuff, right? You have to be really comfortable with it to reach that level of I don't know what the word is, but it can't be a struggle for you to perform at that level. And again, the caveat here is this is the ideal case. You don't have to be at that level, but that is something to strive for, rather than I know the answer, I'm done. I don't need to prepare anymore. I think that can often lead people astray. There's probably always room to improve.
I agree.
Was there anything else, Arthur? Arthur, did you have anything else?
Yes. One thing I wanted to kind of ask about was on version 8, you were working with events, and you bound the event directly in the HTML. I actually read a comment for one of the people saying, "Oh, this is so much frowned upon," and I actually had the same reaction you had, or the answer that you had when you were talking about AngularJS, how you actually do the same exact thing. You just do ng click and you do the same thing. And I was like, okay, this makes sense. And one thing that kind of came to my mind though while watching another video was in terms of optimization for specifically the events. Like every time you add an event listener, that's gonna pile up and slow down your program. I know that you are able to unbind those events after you're done. So when I looked at that kind of like, especially like using the onClick method, I was like, maybe could it be better to do the add event listener, or in that situation, like it really depends on the project you're working on.
It really depends. I think there's a lot of dogma around never do this ever. I think you see that a lot when the reality is more nuanced. And sometimes, like for example, here's another example. A lot of people, they read an article on modularity, which basically means have separate files for everything. And then they become dogmatic about it and stubborn when it doesn't make sense. So it makes sense if you have a really large project to be super modular. If you have a very small project where each function is like 3 lines of code, it might not make that much sense, because then what you've just added to your workload is a lot of switching between files. And which creates extra work. Whereas you could have just had everything in one view without having to toggle back and forth, right? So I always encourage people to not be so stubborn with things and try to look at it at face value for what it is. And I think that's what you kind of saw in the comment thread too. Now, that's one point. The second point is performance is, I think I mentioned to, I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was John. John, tell me if I'm right or wrong. But I mentioned that programmers love to solve problems that they don't have. So for example, every startup thinks they're Google and they need to scale, but they have no customers. Everyone thinks that their tiny app is going to take a lot of memory when it's tiny and it won't. And like, you know, they're trying to optimize for a to-do list that has 1,000 elements, but no single user has ever had like even 100, right? So you really have to think about whether, and you know, so then if you read an article from Google on optimizing like huge apps that are distributed and that people are like editing at the same time, and you know, that has all these constraints that you don't have, you can follow that same trap and then think that you have that problem too, when you don't. And so that's what I'd say about performance. And what really performance is like, you know, you could also take all the code you've written and then theoretically think about the performance in a comparative sense. Like there are ways to think about that that are quite systematic, and you can do that too. But it could be a huge waste of time because you don't have a performance issue. And so my take on performance is always like, and I'm sure a lot of people would frown on this, is worry about it when it's slow. So that just makes things a lot simpler. And so, you know, it's almost like, and I'm not saying don't worry about it, but I'm saying worry about it when it's a problem. And in practical JavaScript, it's really not a problem. And then when that happens, like for example, if you have an extra event listener on 3 buttons, it's not gonna matter, right? Now if you have thousands or hundreds, then maybe it will start to matter. But then you would know too, because your browser would be slow, and then you could actually run like profile against your application and see where it's slow, and then see those issues. But until you have those issues, I wouldn't worry about it. And I don't think you have those issues right now.
It makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. I agree with you. And I really appreciate, again, I really appreciate you putting this course. I learned a lot of things from it. And yeah, that's what I wanted to ask.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, good question. I think it's hard to have my mindset when it sounds like a lot of things I say, I think sound like bad practice. What would be bad practices compared to other people? So I recognize that, but and sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. I think it just really depends on the situation, and I've chosen to look at things from a more nuanced view and not over optimize for problems I don't have and try to solve problems that I don't have and pretend I'm Google when I'm not. Yeah, you see the same problem again with data, like with databases. People are like, I don't want to use MySQL. It doesn't you know, like big data uses NoSQL stuff, and it's like very, very few companies have actually a database where being able to distribute the data across many machines is actually going to make a difference. Almost no companies. Like if that's a problem for you, like, well, I guess the conversation comes up way more often than it should, right? If you think about how often that problem really comes up, it's so rare that you should almost never hear about it. But you know, when you have a new database company like MongoDB trying to market their stuff, then they want to convince everyone that they have that problem, right? And so there are a lot of things in the environment that you need to think about, like, where is this coming from? Does this make sense for me? Are they trying to sell me something? Even when I say something, think about what are my biases and stuff, and how is my experience clouded? what I say, and everyone has a little bit is coming from a slightly different place, and their advice will be skewed to that experience, including mine.
Yeah, I understand, and
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Yep, you're welcome. And have a safe rest of the drive.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. I'm applying for the scholarship with Hack Reactor, and they have this meeting, so it's really important to me to be there. And I wanted to again be with you guys and listen to your questions and have my own. So I really appreciate your patience with me.
Yep. Cool. Thanks for joining. Let's go to Lane. Are you there?
Hi, Gordon.
Hey, yeah. Thanks for being so patient.
No problem. I don't really have a question. I just I've been in PGS for a little while, but I mainly wanted to come on here and see and learn from other people. But I wanted to also thank you for the course. It's awesome.
No, you're welcome.
And I hope to be in premium in the next 2 to 3 weeks at the latest.
Nice. How has your experience been so far? Is there anything you don't like that you think could be improved?
I've been through so many courses and tutorials and almost joined a boot camp. And finally, I'm one of the few people that actually, I mean, yes, I'd like to get a job in tech, but my background's in digital marketing for the last 20 years. So I actually kind of want to move more into product management. But I want to learn the tech because I'm really interested in Internet of Things, and I want to build my own home automation and solutions. And I started with JavaScript, so I figured keep going with it. Your course is it's just realistic, and I like the bite-sized chunks of each version, and it's very clear. I'm one of the few people that I feel pretty confident with the this keyword in objects, so I think you've done a really good job with that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into the premium and get my brain scrambled a little bit.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, I worked in product management for a little bit too, and it's good to see product managers that are more interested in programming. It's very welcome. I think I think it's really great. Like, you don't have to be a developer to or want to be a developer to want to program. And I think that's actually why I learned too. I think I learned first and foremost to build things and like kind of make products that I wanted to make, and I thought that product management or having that skill set was actually more important to building things. Because, like, for example, if you want to start a company, you're gonna have to kind of deal with a bunch of different things to get things out. But at the same time, knowing programming is really helpful, even if it's just to talk with your engineering team, and it just makes things a lot easier. So, and you're less naive than you would be otherwise, and probably less annoying too. So yeah, I found that it's a really good thing that you're doing.
Well, that's it. Thank you again, and I look forward to joining the premium. And I'll be here on a weekly basis now.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to seeing you next week. All right, thanks for joining, Lane, and it's good to meet you.
Yeah, thank you.
We have one more person, Russ.
Let's see. Hey, Gordon, can you hear me? Okay.
Yep. Okay. We missed you the last few weeks.
I've missed you guys. Believe me, I wanted to be here. I definitely did. But with the commute and starting the new, I sent you an email earlier, I guess today, with the commute and starting a new job. And lastly, having some issues with my my laptop monitor. It's been pretty interesting these last 3 weeks, but things have been going, other than that, things have been going pretty well.
Cool.
So I think the first week that I started getting into to do MVC, I was a bit intimidated, more than a bit, and had my brain rattled there for a few. And I kept looking at the code and following the path you laid out as for reading the docs and running the code and reading the code again and going over definitions like Directed.js and handlebars and making sure I knew what was going on there. I felt a little bit, I felt more comfortable. And by the time I hit to do MVC, let's see, the third video, I felt a lot more comfortable. So, so really no questions today. I do have some questions, but I want to sort of figure this out on my own, because I think I haven't spent as much time as I should figuring it out before I ask.
Cool, awesome. It's good to see that transition, Russ. It's a tough one. I think, all the questions today were actually related to what you're going through right now. So from John and Chidima, I think they both asked about to do MVC jQuery. Yeah, it's tough to make that transition, but it's something that you have to do if you wanna make that jump. It should be uncomfortable and hard. And I think the same advice that I would like kind of reinforce with John and Chidima is the experimentation on your own is so valuable. That's where you learn everything. Because that's where it like finally cements into your head. Like for example, that table I went through with John, I went through that table with the logical operators. You could read that table, but it's not going to make so much sense. But when you go through that exercise that we went through, that table comes alive and like gets into your head. And then even if you forget it, you can run that experiment again and derive that table real quick. So you got to get used to that, just diving in, figuring things out, and almost doing that like as the first thing you grab for, rather than I got to Google this, I got to Google that, right? Because oftentimes you really don't. You can actually think through it and figure it out on your own. So it's good to exercise that muscle.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So yeah, so things are going things are very difficult and exciting at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, I look forward to hearing like just let me know how things go. I'll go and read your email. I see your email in my inbox. I haven't opened it yet.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll take a look at it. And yeah, keep me updated on the progress. And then if you have any questions, then of course you can come here next week, but just throw them in the Slack too. Don't wait for it.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm excited to see your progress.
Thanks a lot, Gordon. Don't be too excited.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for joining, Russ, and glad to have you back. I think that was everyone. I'll do a real quick sweep of the YouTube. I don't think anyone. We had a troll. That's okay. So no questions there. Facebook. No questions there. Okay. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up for today. What we usually do at the end of the sessions is have like a real quick kind of off the air chat. So it's a little bit more casual. So if you want to just kind of share something or just, I don't know, talk to other students that are in this room right now, then you want to join that, just call into the Hangout now. And we'll probably do that for, I'll stick around for maybe 15, 20 minutes, and then you'll be feel free to stay a little bit longer. So join that if you want to right now. If you're watching on the YouTube live stream or watching this at a later date, I'm gonna end the broadcast right now. So if you're just tuning in for that, thank you for joining, and I'll hope to see you next week. All right, I'll see you.